Hello, everyone, and welcome in. If you joined us just a second ago, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. We're trying to get those things ironed out. I'm looking right now to see if those things have indeed been ironed out. But, Joe, before we got cut off due to the internet
Yeah.
gremlins, your driver, the number 5, Kyle Larson, Young Money is what they call him, Y-U-N-G. We did not misspell that on the thumbnail. That is how it's spelled for him. Ended up getting the victory today at Richmond. You being the Kyle Larson fan, how did you feel? It seems like this has been, it should have been a lot sooner. You've been on here a little bit frustrated because a couple times things did not go your way. But, what's that like being a fan of Kyle Larson, knowing that now he is locked into the playoffs and has confetti all over his car?
Well, I mean, it's as a fan. I mean, you know the feeling, man. Anybody that their driver wins a race, it's a great feeling. You're kind of on cloud nine for a while. It's always with Kyle Larson this year. It's we've seen him, in the past 7 races, he's been close, but today he was able to pick up the win, and I'm pretty happy for him. In today's kind of bittersweet because this is the first week in probably a year and a half that I haven't placed a bet on Kyle Larson to win, and he ends up winning today. I think that he's had some problems with his pit crew and some problems that weren't even really his fault on the track, and it seemed like that string of bad luck was going to continue. But he's locked in the playoffs now. He's got his driver's points back, so we're competing for a championship this year. It's a great feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, you really look at him and William Byron right now, macro as the two, I think, dominant drivers this year so far, and say right now they're the odds-on favorites to win the championship. Maybe that's just me, and we'll dive into the race here in a second, but I want to just, start with Kyle Larson and getting into this is that, it wouldn't be, I think, too far out there to say that Kyle Larson could have 3 wins right now. And I don't think we've been looking at Kyle Larson that way, maybe because his teammate William Byron's the one with 2. And honestly, he himself could have had 3 wins, but tonight the rabbit's foot was on Kyle Larson's side and it wasn't on William Byron's side because William Byron's found his way coming off a pit road, getting that type of positioning and everything breaking his way. Tonight, that did not happen. Kyle Larson got off pit road first and then end up getting Christopher Bell, as what you and I refer to as the Dave Chappelle FBO couch, and a few of those happened today.
Right.
Some FBO couches. And if you're not knowing what I'm talking about, look up Rick James on the Dave Chappelle skit, and most certainly don't watch it around your kids.
Yeah.
But it's just clearly everything went right for Kyle Larson. I don't know if he had the most dominant car today. I don't know if I could pick somebody who did have the most dominant car today, but Joe, I think that's Richmond. And, I
Right.
think that what we saw out of Kyle Larson was he was able to keep that top 5 positioning, put himself in a chance to win the race, and he's been there all year long so far.
Well, there were really 4 cars today that when you watch the entirety of the race, you said that's a car that could win here. I think William Byron had the best car. He got chastained by Christopher Bell at the end of the race. I think if that doesn't happen, I think that William Byron probably wins this race. Just kind of watching how he was able to get to the front the entire race. I also thought Denny Hamlin had a really good car today. I think every JGR car had a great car. I mean, I think Ty Gibbs finished with a top 10 finish today, which is kind of incredible for him. JGR got it right, definitely. I think Kyle Busch probably would have had a win today if he was still with JGR, but he's not. And so I think the race really came down to the 4 possibilities of a win today were Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, William Byron, and obviously Kyle Larson. So, I don't think that there was any doubt at the end of stage 2, heading into stage 3, who the horses were in the race. Denny Hamlin kind of screwed himself speeding on pit road after a pit stop. So that really took it down to a 3-horse race, and Bell Chastain's William Byron. So we saw the finish we saw, and once Kyle Larson got out with 9 laps to go in clean air, there wasn't any catching him. So great race, and I'm glad he got his first win. Really.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, Denny Hamlin was so fast today, Joe, he couldn't stop speeding wherever he wasn't allowed to speed. Two times he speeds on pit road, and, another pit road incident to where they didn't tighten the tire, and just a horrific day when it come to pit road
Right.
penalties, both by driver and team for Denny Hamlin. But let's go ahead and take a look real quick at the finishing results as we pull them up right here, and we'll kind of go through them. Josh Berry, I think, is probably a surprise to most. We talked about him on the betting show, and really, Josh Berry did not have both, I think, the talent nor the speed to be top two, but he had the crew chief in Gustafson, and we talked about this, that put out a different strategy and got his driver a top five, ends up getting second place. So congratulations to him, his second top 10. I was kind of disappointed. He's been known as a short track racer. He's been known, he's obviously in the best equipment he'll ever drive. And at the end of the day, Joe, it's not how you do the first 390 miles. It's the last. And, he finds himself into a top five. And, so congratulations to him. Ross Chastain gets a quiet third place finish. Christopher Bell takes Ross Chastain's spot on somebody that ends up wrecking somebody. Kevin Harvick disappointed me a little bit today, and that's kind of weird to say that with a top five. Just never competed up there. Just didn't have the car to compete, but didn't do anything to make sure he didn't get a top five. So again, I honestly thought he was going to have an opportunity to win the race. Did not. Michael McDowell and Joey Logano again take care of what was some good pit road strategy to get into sixth and seventh. Alex Bowman did his normal thing, runs up in the top 10 the entire day. You mentioned Ty Gibbs. This is actually his third ninth place finish in a row. So Ty Gibbs coming on a little bit. And then Brad Keselowski gets 10th place to round it off. Again, a good showing by Brad Keselowski, who has had top 10 speed the entire year. Martin Truex Jr. runs on scuffed tires, did not have any slicks left. He started up, I believe, Joe, it was around fourth or fifth on that final restart and just had to block and battle his way to get to 11th. Eric Almirola came out of nowhere. He ended up starting like 32nd, ran a good race. Kyle Busch, awful. His car was awful. I mean, just absolutely god awful today, and finds a way to get 14th. That was not a 14th car, and I think you know that because his teammate was right here, and he ran there the entire race. So, that's all you can say about him. Chandler Smith starts dead last in the third Kaulig racing car and finds his way up top. Tyler Reddick didn't do very well. And then kind of your normal Denny Hamlin finishes way back here due to his own demise. Daniel Suarez was fast a little bit, but obviously the big one falling down, William Byron, was running up front, led 117 laps, and Ryan Blaney shoots himself in the foot as well. But that's pretty much it.
Well,
Ricky Stenhouse go ahead.
Yeah, Reddick actually looked good all day until he had a self-inflicted spin coming out of turn 4. So, he had a good car as well. So, really that Reddick finish was, I think he actually did a very good job keeping that car in the lead lap and finishing on the lead lap personally after his spin.
Yeah, and Josh Berry had an early spin as well as he was hit. And maybe that's just karma for Denny Hamlin finishing 20th after punting J.J. Yaley for no reason.
Yeah, what was up with that?
And Ryan Blaney also punted somebody and finished in 26. So maybe, Joe, karma just came back around in NASCAR and said,
I texted you on the Denny Hamlin J.J. Yaley punt. I still don't understand. I don't know what he was mad at, why he did that. It was obviously on purpose. That wasn't just good racing. It was almost like, you know what, J.J. Yaley, you're not going to stay on the lead lap with me. Get out of here.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I can say, Joe, is he was mad at himself for getting a speeding penalty, and he saw J.J. Yaley in his way. He thought maybe he squeezed him, but they were 3 wide. He was the middle of 3. So, I mean, technically he could have wrecked one of 2 different drivers,
right.
But decided J.J. Yaley was going to feel his wrath, and J.J. Yaley finishes 36. One thing I was going to say, too, Ricky Stenhouse looked really fast early and then had a brake issue.
Yeah.
So, that was kind of unfortunate for him. He was running the high line when nobody else was remotely close doing it, taking up spots. But anybody else there, Joe, that kind of piques your interest, or you want to talk about real quick while we have the race results pulled up?
No, I mean we can just. I'm going to talk about RCR for a minute. You know,
Okay.
I was pretty surprised that they showed up without cars to compete this week. And granted, some of these problems are problems that you fix in practice during qualifying to get the speed, what have you. And of course, they just basically rolled a car off a truck this week and put it out on the track, but everybody did that. I think RCR really has to capitalize every race, and they need to make sure that they have quality equipment. You have one of the best drivers in the sport, if not the best driver in the sport. I know people like to argue about that, but you have Kyle Busch, and you're putting him in equipment that you're giving him a 25th place car. I mean, he's able to make chicken salad out of chicken shit and get in the top 15 with a 14th place finish. But, you have Kyle Busch. You got to do better than that. You got to give him equipment he can compete in. You give him a 10th place car, he's competing for a win. You give him a 25th place car, he can't win with that.
No, and I thought they were going to pull one out of their hat, kind of like they did a little bit last week at COTA. I didn't think they had a second place car, and
Right.
Randall Burnett and company make a good strategy call and end up getting a second place. And this week it kind of turned back around, and I think that's the difference this year, maybe versus last, is that Randall Burnett is exponentially better than Ben Bayshore. So Kyle Busch is able to salvage a top 14 because Joe, he did not gain spots on the track the entire day. I mean, literally, it was gained on pit road and then lost exponentially throughout the race.
And you could tell. He went backward all day long, like you just said, but his car was so loose too. When you're sitting at home and you're watching these next gen cars go around the track, and you could tell how loose a car is on a short track, that's a setup issue that they got to get right coming off the truck. That's not good at all.
Oh, and this is twice now. We saw this at Phoenix. They came off the truck at Phoenix and were god awful. I think in practice they were 29th. So all of you listening from my Rowdy Bush group that I joined on Facebook, this is your segment. We can all live in this together. But it's something now where they're trying to build upon whatever they're doing with the short tracks, and they're not there. I heard multiple times, free plug for NASCAR Premium, with NASCAR or with Kyle Busch on the radio, listen to it on my phone. Richard Childress goes, just throw whatever you need to. I mean, multiple times he comes on and goes, what the hell's going on? And they simply do not have it. They got the driver that can get them a top 15, like you said, with chicken shit. Not many people can, but you're right. Very disappointing for a track that Kyle dominates at typically. I mean, he has had 10 top 10s in a row, and it was going to be a minor miracle today to get a top 10, and unfortunately he's unable to get that. So and then Austin Dillon was nowhere to be found during this race. But I want to talk about another driver real quick. Ross Chastain. He quietly is getting top fives on a nonstop basis, and I think last year surprised us a lot. And yes, we call it Chastain, and we talk about, getting hit and, his teammates trying to find him and get pissed off at him. But one thing is for certain, whether he has respect in the garage or not, Joe, whatever he's doing at Trackhouse, it's not Daniel Suarez being that consistent at the top. It's Ross Chastain any and every week getting top fives.
Yeah, Ross Chastain. People love to hate him. I don't like the guy. He's a good race car driver. I don't think you can really argue that. He has a little problem with letting off the gas when he needs to. He'll run people over. Obviously, he'll do whatever he can to get in the position that he needs to. He'll ride the wall 3/4 of the way around the track. So, the guy's going to do what he needs to do. And really, from what I've seen this year, he's had his problems on the track this year, but nowhere near what we saw last year. It seems like he has toned it down quite a bit. And I think I think he's doing exactly what he wants to do. And you used a good word. He quietly had a top five today. And I think that's what he's trying to do. I think he's quietly trying to win races. I I don't think it's any secret that he's not in good standing in the NASCAR garage. I mean, he's not liked by very many. I mean, he's not even liked by his teammate, obviously. So we saw that. Yeah, we saw that last week. So I think that he is doing what he is intending to do right now, and that's to go out and run good races and not have too much publicity on him, trying to tone it down a little bit. And I think, I believe if memory strikes me right, at the beginning of this season, you said Ross Chastain's going to be in the championship 4 again. Isn't he one of your picks?
No, I did the opposite. I said that they would struggle and that they would only have one win. Well, currently they have 0. Um, but I just thought last year maybe they figured something out and nobody else did, and the field would catch up to them. But I'm willing to say that Chevy figured something out, and I don't think anybody's catching up with
Yeah.
Chevy. I
No.
mean, this is typically a Toyota dominated race, and it's a great segue, Joe, into the next topic I want to talk to you about is JGR. I think that they came away with this thinking that they're going to have 4 drivers in the top 10, and more importantly, lead the most laps, because that's what they've done here so often. And only 2 drivers end up in the top 10. James Small makes a bad decision to keep using tires to where Martin Truex just gets screwed out of a top 5, and because they ran out of tires when everybody else had tires. And, I just look at it like this, that this was one of the races that JGR really probably had circled and said, if we don't have a win here, we're going to make a ton of points. Do you think that they come away from leaving Richmond with just a lot of regret and kind of go, where the hell did this all go wrong?
Well, obviously Martin Truex and his pitch strategy today, his entire crew, they got it wrong. But I will tell you what, you take out one of those spins, you take out the Reddick spin. Martin Truex is competing to win this race, and that at the end of the day, they were counting on the typical number of cautions at this race. They got more than usual. They used their tires like they thought that they could use their tires, and it didn't pay off. At the end of the day, maybe they should have done what everybody else did in the field, not change their tires after 6 laps on the first caution. So, or after one of the cautions that they got. So, after only being out for 6 laps, and that's really the difference from them. It was a gamble and it didn't pay off, and that's what happens when you gamble. But really, in the history of Richmond, everything you do there is a gamble. Do you stay out an extra lap hoping for a caution when you're running low on fuel? Do you run 2 or 3 more laps, or do you come in when everybody else is and stay on the same strategy? I think Michael McDowell was on some sort of crazy pitch strategy that they knew that they didn't have a car to win, and they were gambling that if the stars align, that they're going to be up front at the end of the day. Obviously, that didn't pay off for them, but we've seen crazier things happen at Richmond, and
I'd say it paid off for Michael McDowell. He got a top 10.
Yeah. Well, and that is very good for him. So, I'm more of a top heavy guy when it comes to paying off. If you're not first, you're last. I live by that.
Well, yeah. Well, you're a Kyle Larson fan. I think if you're a Front Row Motorsports and at Richmond you get a top 10, I think they're probably pretty ecstatic.
Yeah, you're right, man. I'm just, kind of spitballing that at the end of the day, you got to gamble a little bit at Richmond, and sometimes those gambles pay off, and sometimes they don't. Martin Truex had a car to win today. Denny Hamlin had a car to win today. Christopher Bell had a car to win today. So Ty Gibbs, probably, if you put Kyle Busch or any other driver in there, Denny Hamlin or Martin Truex, that car probably had the ability to win today. So, really, I think at the end of the day, I know that watching a race at Richmond for somebody that, maybe watches NASCAR off and on, maybe a more casual fan, they probably thought it was a very boring race today. I thought that was a great race today.
Well, your driver won, so you get a little bit of a bias. So,
Yes.
not saying that it wasn't, Joe. I'm just saying that Hater Hank, the average viewer, is going to, his guy won today. Of course he's going to say that. But no, I agree with you. And that kind of leads up to my next. Go ahead, real quick.
Truth be told, I was halfway pulling for Josh Berry at the end of that race on that last restart. I thought that would have been pretty cool. I mean, Kyle
Would have
Larson is
been.
going to get his wins, but I thought that would be pretty cool. I was rooting for both of them.
Unless Josh Berry would have hit Kyle Larson and wrecked him,
Then I'd been pissed,
then
and I would have
yeah.
said, fire him, never let him race in a cup car again.
So, but another great segue. I was going to ask you, was this a good race? You know, did you think that Richmond with the new aero package showed off enough to be considered a good race in your mind?
I think Richmond was an excellent race if you understand short track racing and specifically the race at Richmond. Richmond was a great race, far better than what we've seen on the short tracks last year. I think that everything came into play, driving ability. The cars were a little bit looser with more downforce this week, so
Less
I
downforce.
think less downforce. I'm sorry. They did seem a little bit more loose, and that's something that I know that the drivers and the teams were wanting to get a practice in to see what these cars were going to do. So, they were going into this blind. You could tell there were several teams that just didn't have that set up right going in before the first caution, before the first competition caution. Some adjustments were made, but RCR had it wrong all day. They couldn't get a car right, and I'm very excited to move forward. I know, we have this short track leg coming up. You're going to Martinsville. We have
Bristol next week for
Bristol
Easter.
dirt next week, but you kind of got to throw that one out because it's on dirt. So
Right.
that's a little bit different style of racing. And I think when you look at the entirety of this race, hands down, this was a very good Richmond race, and it was kind of a typical Richmond race. I think we saw some veteran drivers like Kevin Harvick, even Joey Logano. Joey Logano had a terrible car, and he was able to keep his car.
According to your text messages, he did, Joe. Yes, he had a terrible car.
He did.
You're right. He did.
Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, obviously they were a little off on their setup, but the veteran drivers and the veteran crew chiefs and the veteran crews were able to keep their cars in contention all day. And at the end of the day, this race went exactly like I thought. I watched the entire thing. If you can keep me sitting down watching the entire thing and I don't even get up to go to the bathroom except on a caution, that it's a pretty good race.
Yeah, and I think we were gifted with a great day of racing. If you started at 1 a.m. like I myself did for the Formula One race, Jensen Button was on that for Formula One's attempt at a green-white checker. And if you want to know how that went, shit exploded everywhere.
Yeah.
So all of the gentlemen exactly, the gentleman racing, everybody respects everybody. No, they don't. And there's a reason why they don't have green white checkers in Formula One, because nobody would finish. Literally half the field was taken out on the third turn. That being said, you got to witness a great IndyCar race where I was watching the Cincinnati Reds. The IndyCar race was a good product today. I think 6 drivers within a second.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, they're 3 wide at Texas at 220 miles an hour, finishing and there was a number of spin outs and wrecks, some hard wrecks in the Indy race today. But really, I mean, Indy puts on, especially at the 1.5 miles, and I think that those are overlooked. And you've said this because when I texted you and said, "Man, that was a good Indy race today," you were like, "Yeah, well, I kind of forgot about it because they don't advertise anything," and they don't. You kind of got. If you want to follow IndyCar, you kind of got to do it yourself. I mean, they're on a major network. You can watch the race. It's not hard to watch it. You just have to know that it's on. And, at least this year they're going at noon, because last year they had a couple of races where they tried to compete with NASCAR
simultaneously
at the same time. And I think ratings showed them that that's not a great idea. So that race came on at noon today at Texas, following a great truck race where Carson Hocevar got his first win yesterday in the truck series. I've been pulling for that guy for a little bit.
Yeah, Chandler Smith got his first win.
Yeah,
in Xfinity.
So, yeah, it's a week of first for the lower series, and Carson Hocevar had a bad wreck, I think, at Nashville last year where he broke a leg, and and he's always been right there. He's going to be a driver. If you're not into following the lower series in Xfinity and the truck series, Carson Hocevar in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to be hearing his name a whole bunch because he's always right there. And he picked up his first win, which was great. And actually, he picked up his first win in NASCAR overtime, starting from the 6th position. So,
Wow.
yeah, well, they took the white flag, and there was a wreck up front, and he happened to get that caution. But nevertheless, he was in position to win. He got a good win. Really a great weekend of racing all around. I mean, that's pretty much what I did all weekend.
Let me tie it up with this type of race, Joe. And we preface this a lot in the weekly show. And a lot of you guys end up watching the weekly show. And, we hit our first, we're going to hit our first 1,000 viewed video when it came to the Kurt Busch news. So again, want to thank you all for that. We're trying to put out information as quick as we possibly can, and you guys have responded really, really well. So we appreciate that. But this week, we prefaced and said this is going to be a different type of race. It's going to be fuel strategy. It's going to be tires. And I'm telling you this, I love a race where tires matter. I have always been a guy that has loved comers and goers when it comes to tires, and we saw that today. We saw Hendrick dominate the early runs, Joe, and then just absolutely fall off a cliff whenever it came to like the 50-mile mark or the 50 lap mark on tires. And that's so good because that makes it so much more difficult. And we said good pit strategy is going to win this. Good crew chiefs are going to win this. And look no further, Hendrick, known for their good strategy, ends up winning this race. I believe if Cole Pern is on the top of the box for Martin Truex, he probably has a chance to win this race. But unfortunately, he does not have him. And I think Cole Pern was criminally underrated whenever he ended up retiring. Randall Burnett ends up getting a top 14 car out of jack shit, to be completely honest with you. And yes, we tease Alan Gustafson on the show. I call him goofed up son because of his ability to always win stages versus races. But he's still a good crew chief, and he's been in this sport for 20 plus years. He was Kyle Busch's crew chief whenever he was the number 5 at Hendrick that long ago. And this was a throwback. There were 4 or 5 cars that had a chance to win this race. Whoever had the best strategy, whoever put themselves at the best opportunity to win, ended up winning the race in Kyle Larson. And if you listen and watch us, we'll kind of preface these type of things for you. Next week is going to be completely different. And to be honest with you, Joe, last year, the Bristol Dirt Race might have been the best short track race we had the entire year. So
yeah, it was. I mean, it was probably the best finish. I'll say that.
Yeah, and I don't expect nothing less. We went into it criticizing it pretty heavily because we just think that there's better places to go. But at the end of the day, it was a great show. And not just because Kyle Busch won, but because of all the things that happened in the race. It was very competitive. It kept our interest. They had a much better type of equipment. They learned from their mistakes on the first time. And Joe, I want to kind of maybe get to the closing to the end of this. We now see that we have this new aero package with less downforce that we're using on the road course and that we're using on the short track. We said after Phoenix, maybe hold some reserve because Phoenix, in my opinion, is not a great track. If you have the best car, you'll win by half a straightaway. The road course, it passed with flying colors on the first opportunity. Today at Richmond, looking back and seeing how we got lower downforce, people were able to pass. More importantly, people were moving 4 or 5 lanes at Richmond, for God's sakes.
Mm-hmm.
I think today the lower downforce short track package did really, really well.
Yeah, I think NASCAR's on the right track with providing better quality racing at short tracks than what we've seen last year. But they almost had to, because it was so horrific last year when you looked at Richmond and Martinsville. Bristol was okay outside of the dirt race. The dirt race is a whole different animal in and of itself. You really can't compare anything you're going to see next week to anything we're talking about today. But
correct.
Yeah, I think absolutely. As far as looking at aero package, and we saw it last week at COTA, both of us thought they did an amazing job. After Richmond today, I definitely think they're on the right track, and I'm kind of anxious to see what, excuse me, what we see at Martinsville now in a couple weeks. So, it won't be hard, I guess, to say that to have a better product than what we saw last year at Martinsville.
Oh dear God, that literally might have been the worst race I've ever seen. And the sad thing, Joe, is we prepared people for a great race, and then like 20 laps in, I go, "Oh no,
No, yeah,
this is terrible."
it was so bad they ran out of hot dogs. Literally, they did. They ran
I
out of.
know, I know. I mean, at a place that holds so many thousands of people, where there's so much racing to where people don't want to leave. Everybody's like, "It's so damn cold. The racing is terrible. I'm gonna go get a hot. Better yet, I'm
Yeah,
gonna get 5 so I can hang out
yeah.
here."
Let me just get some hot dogs. How would you like to have been the guy that showed up and was like, "I'll take 3 hot dogs," and they're like, "We're out. We're out." There's 90 laps to go. You're out of hot dogs?
Imagine, yeah, you're at a White Sox game or a Cubs game. You're like, "I want a Chicago dog." Oh, we sold out. Okay. Oh, obviously, I'm from out of town. No, you don't have to be an asshole, but I would like a hot dog. No, man, we're out. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Aren't you guys like famous for your hot dogs? Yeah. Yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
bring enough. We don't
Yeah.
expect
Imagine.
9 hot dogs.
I mean, imagine us, Joe, going to a Bengals game. You're like, "Yeah, I'd like a couple cheese conies. We're out.
Yeah.
I'll fight you right now."
Yeah. So or you can just go to Bengal Jim's. He'll have some cheese conies for you.
That's true.
Cody Turner said he'll take 3 hot dogs right now.
Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, that's the typical Sunday night.
Yeah. I wonder if Cody Turner microwaves his hot dogs or if he subscribes to the boiling method of his hot dogs or he grills them.
If I'm going to guess, Cody Turner puts them in lukewarm water, does not dry them off, and then just slaps it on a bun and just. Arf.
Do you think he dips his bun in water like they do in the
I think
hot
what he does,
contest?
exactly. He Kobayashi's it. He, and then just and then shoves it in all at once. And if anything doesn't come out of his nose, he views that as a failure.
Yeah. Cody's a good guy. I saw him working on saw him working on some softball fundamentals the other day with his daughter in his front yard.
We should treat our live stream comments as just by completely obliterating their confidence. I mean,
Right.
it feels like we shouldn't, but I kind of feel like we should.
I was gonna give him a honk as I drove by, but he was in mid throw to his daughter, and I didn't want her looking over and taking one off the face, so I didn't do that.
Yeah, yeah. Cody he was my first baseman. He took plenty off the shins having to catch me. So, I think it comes full circle if his daughter throws one and she catches him off guard. But
Right.
Now, again, Joe, just kind of moving forward real quick, we are going to the Bristol Dirt Race. It will be at night on Sunday, so prepare for that. I don't get off on Monday, so I guess other people maybe get off for Easter on Monday. I don't. So it's kind of weird. I just want to preface it by saying it'll be a very late post-race show, so be prepared for that. I believe the first lap is at 7 p.m. So be ready for that, but we'll have a weekly show. Our NASCAR lineup on the betting show, again, made money. We made 2 lineups and made money. And if you're an idiot like me, you made an alteration right before the race started and it kicks you in the ass. So don't do that. But if you would have merged both of our lineups together, you probably made a lot of money today.
Yeah.
And we prefaced that it was really hard to make a lineup this week whenever qualifying was based upon points and, top speed from last week. But, is there anything else about this race or anything else that you want to lean into or talk about before we jump off here?
No, I just want to, state again that Richmond was a great race. Richmond's back in my opinion. Can't wait to see Martinsville. Kind of can't wait to see Bristol Dirt next week. That's a whole animal in and of itself. So, I'm pretty excited about the next couple of weeks, and we'll be on here to give you any news that comes our way, really.
Yeah. And I do want to say this for those that have invested in us outside the one troll that doesn't like our audio, which
Yeah, our
it
audio is
sounds okay.
terrible.
Yeah, it sounds okay. We are continuously looking to improve. So we started today. We're going to have a rolling ticker for you. We're going to have multiple different things to begin the show. Unfortunately, living where we do, the internet was not in our favor today like it has been. So we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but there are so many different things that we were planning to do to make this broadcast even better than what it is. You'll just have to bear with us. If you are new here, we mentioned that this is a new show. Literally, we started 1 week before the season started, and you guys have blown us away with your support, with the liking of the videos, with subscribing, all these different things. And we said, as long as you're willing to invest in us, we promise that we're going to get better and better and better. And we still have plans to do that. We are doing that every single day. Uh, and more importantly, we're just so thankful that you're here with us, growing with us, and we're having a great NASCAR season so far, Joe. And I just can't wait. Every single time we jump on here and talk NASCAR, I just look forward to the new faces, the new listeners, and things that jump in and what they have to say in terms of their support.
Me too. And I will say, you know, kind of what you were saying. It's not that we don't know how to provide you great optics. You know, we live in an area, probably the reason why, if you want to follow stereotypes, why we're such huge NASCAR fans. We live in an area where you would think that that's where NASCAR fans would live. So,
Point.
our our internet's not the greatest. We do have fiber coming our way very shortly, so things will get a lot better. And, you know, having said that, maybe, Ryan, something that we can do is maybe get a 60 or 70-year-old NASCAR driver who ran 3 or 4 races in the Cup Series and bring him on here as a featured attraction.
That, or things that we have down the pipeline, if you're waiting for that, is we're going to have a top 10 NASCAR wrecks of all time, where we
Yeah,
break down 5 of our favorite wrecks, and something in the near future, again, whenever the technology allows it. And from what we've been told and what we've been allowed to do, we're going to live stream these races to where, again, you get to be part of the conversation, because Joe and I love to text each other and call each other during race breaks and all these types of other things. And we know you, as the fan, want somebody to talk to about it as well. And we would love to do that. We also have to make sure our technology can support that, and it will
right.
in the very, very near future. And as soon as we get that capability, we will be on here, at least one of us, if not both, that will be here providing that for you so we can enjoy the sport that we love together. So again, thank you very much. We really do appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So that's going to be it for this show. We'll wait for the news to come out where we do our weekly show. If something else pops up and we have to do our, oh God, what is it? Comment at Control Center. What is it?
So Cody said you guys truly are doing a great job. Can't wait to see how the show improves. And then he said he's really glad that your facial hair is coming back because now you don't look like a 12-year-old boy.
He's not the only one. So I can't help it. It's not, it's weird going to work and seeing people go, who's the new guy? And I'm like, it's the same. You know what? I'm going to go cry in the closet. Don't worry about it. So yeah. Anybody want to lead me on a great directional video on how to shave? 30 plus years old and make a lot of mistakes. So, send that my way as well.
I just don't do it.
That's probably the best. Look, Joe, haven't shaved for a week now, can grow nothing on the sides. I don't get it.
Now,
When I hit puberty,
you'll start. Then it'll be out of
growth spurt's number one. I'll probably be 6'3".
Probably
more than likely, and I'll be able to finally grow some hair on my cheeks.
Yeah, you get sideburns.
The struggle is real.
Next time I shave, what I'll do is I'll keep it for you, and we'll make a beard wig, and then you can wear my beard.
I will never trust that is the hair that comes from your face. So I will never, ever, ever do.
Oh man, we better wrap this up.
Yeah. Say, hey, there's new look.
Yeah. I have seen Jackass.
So if you're still joining us and haven't thrown up yourself, thank you very much. We'll be back with the weekly show. This has been the post race recap with Stuck